Hello, this is Kim. It is, I'm looking at it, March 21st, 2025, when I am recording this. And if anyone's really a fan of like numerology, it is 4:55. Like some people are really into it. I'm not that good. But you never know, it might mean something to you. We sort of go in order here in terms of numbers, but not in terms of the booklet. I'm using the Rooted Woman, and it's broken up in different sections. So like you have like a place section, like one of our cards is a place, and like several of our cards are like more like character cards, and it's just interesting how it's broken up. But we sort of go in the numbers anyway, even though they're not actually like in each section. They're like 1 through 12, blah 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 blah, blah, and we do pretty much go in order. Just we skip all over the book, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then at the end, I'm going to pull some spark romance. It's sort of like that season to me, Astara, if you celebrate Astara, was yesterday, March 20th, vernal equinox. Um, so I had Cinnabons. Shout out to the cinnamon roll fiends. Um, that was my celebration. I never got to post anything. I usually do. I'm like, oh, here's a picture. Did not happen. I was hacked for 4 hours. I actually went back and forth, deleting. They put something up. I delete back, and so it gets interesting. Very interesting. I've never seen like my inbox in Russian. I don't know what inbox says or how to say it, but it was not with the regular English letters. So I was like, we have an issue. Indeed, right? Okay. That was a very long segue. I apologize. I'm trying to find it. All right. So I again in the back, right? Pilgrimage. All right. It was our first card. Trying to get it to focus with the light. And also very hot, even though it's not that hot out. I mean, it's like not hot out at all. It's not frozen, but not hot. But my house with the sunlight gets a little warm. Who knew? I certainly didn't. I'm learning everything. All right, pilgrimage. 3. I'm not going to read everything that it says, but like, it's that idea of like right now, like what do we most need to survive and thrive? And like it's going into spring. If you are on the northern hemisphere, if you're watching in the summer hemisphere or at a different time of year when you're watching this, because this is timeless, then just think of it as like a pilgrimage during those seasons. Okay. So it says in the book that a pilgrimage is always spiritual. So I guess there's always some yearning, some reason like we need to go on a journey and something that we need to do, even if we don't know what we need to do, right? A lot of people say that when we're stuck or can't make ourselves do something, um, that you just have to start with just a small, like little thing, even if it's not like the thing that is like keeping you in executive dysfunction. You just do a small thing and you prove that you can keep going and keep going. And eventually you do everything that you're really supposed to do, you know? That's how I sort of feel about this card, is that we are going to do everything we are intended and supposed to do. We're sort of setting out the intention of, well, now it's time to actually get down to business, whatever that business might be, even if it's just finding ourselves, right? So it says that it's a search for knowledge, a search for becoming. And a pilgrimage begins also with a longing for deep connection, for true nurturing community, or simply for change. And all of those things can be true at the same time. It asks us to surrender to the journey and open ourselves up to new ways of traveling and seeing. The pilgrim's path is designed to wind its way across the unknown and often rough territory, and the long, arduous journey requires endurance, resilience, and focus. And this is sort of like also a way of like going through life. It doesn't just have to be, 1 year or one season. This can be a mindset for life, intentional. I am doing it for this reason, or I am searching. There is like this idea of holding the lantern out, right? Sort of like the hermit, like going through and like holding out the lantern and looking into the abyss of our own souls, right? And just like, who am I? Why? Existential crises abound in life. So maybe this is one of them. It says, step by bumpy step, one foot in front of the other. The path will fade behind you, and there will be no way back. That's the other big thing. There's no return. There's no return to like where you were before. Even if you go back to that same exact place, you're different. And that's sort of like just like the way it is. So they're always like, oh, you can't go back home once you've left. Well, you're not the same person. That doesn't mean you can't go to that place, right? But you're not the person that left that place. Um, the most valuable allies are those who teach us that we cannot succeed alone, and more, that it's meaningless to succeed alone. And for the essential feature of the heroine's journey is uncovering the joys of necessity for a community. Pilgrim paths are peopled by many others, and if we're open, we'll find many kinds of allies along the way. And it adds, only some of them are human. I like that. I think that it's a good message for this time of year, and certainly for March 2025, if you're watching it now. All right, our next one is the island. Number 2, boundedness and isolation. A lot of people right now, specifically, feel like they're on an island. They can hear people sort of calling out. They can sort of be like, oh yeah, 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 and sort of like you know that people are out there. Some people are stuck in an echo chamber in the United States. It just depends which echo chamber. We don't really ever get our message all the way through. And if this is at a different time, and this is about you and where you are, it's sort of like that, you know, the pilgrimage asks us to go internal, really, and journey. And then the island sort of explains why. If that pilgrimage is about finding community, finding ourselves, the island is about isolation, boundaries, that all the waves around us that trap us or that we think trap us. I'm gonna put it down though. An island can represent many ways of being in the world. It can be the source of safety and security, or it could represent exile and isolation. Excuse me, nose is running. Sometimes this is positive thing, a necessary withdrawal to lick our wounds and gain respite. Sometimes the withdrawal is some way forced upon us. Perhaps we can't accommodate the world as we know it or feel ourselves fully part of it. Has anyone, all right, this is like me right now. Like I've been like, hey, does anyone feel like this? Um, like I'm alone. I'm completely surrounded by friends. I still feel isolated and alone, and no one understands. I can't read my mind. The person I want to talk to isn't there, or maybe there's just no one that I think can understand. That is sort of like our own island that where we only hear our own voice in our head, and it's usually going, I don't belong here. I don't belong here. So we have to sort of acknowledge that, okay? That the island doesn't have to be a physical place. It doesn't have to be a physical boundary. I cannot go down that road because, the pilgrimage is telling you to go down the road. And no, but there's a border there. And sometimes it's within, and it's our own mind that is doing it. I'm trying to see, is it all edges are transitional places, and the greatest edges of all are the places where land meets sea. These edges might seem gentle on a still summer's day when the warm, excuse me. All right, I'll try again. Slower now. All edges are transitional places, and the greatest edges of all are the places where land meets sea. These edges might seem gentle on a still summer's day when the sun warms the shallows and the soft sand cradles you, but to inhabit an island, you must also be able to face the storm. Its edges might seem to be defined on an island on a map, but for the island's perspective, its edges aren't always strictly defined. They shift with weather and with the tides. It's a never-ending dance between land and sea. This card reminded us to ponder that mystery and never to resist natural flow. Oh, it's natural flow. Okay, well, it goes back and forth. Excuse me 1 second. I just got. Okay, I'm back. Sometimes you just feel like you have to get that text that you get. Now, usually you'll be like, oh, it's confirmation or whatever you want to say. This one, for those of you who don't know, I do dabble in archaeology, right? So one of the volunteers with me, he just texted and he's like, I'm planting trees and it's going so slow because I'm looking at every rock because I'll never look at them the same again. Because we're looking, at you know, um, plates and projectile points and faces. And now the poor gentleman is looking at rocks while he digs. Probably a lot of trees. I don't know. It sounds both painful and fun. I don't know. Perhaps I should like close my message and just be like, but it is a beautiful day for it. And it is pretty much spring, depending where you are. So we can like also like take that, you know, you can examine things differently, when everything looks different after you learn something new. It's a good time to learn something new. All right. Our next one is Selkie. That's the myth of the sealskin or the sealskin woman, where she, has the sealskin. Usually she's young and a man takes her sealskin and she's forced to marry, forced to be on land, cannot leave unless she has the sealskin. That's like part of being a Selkie. I guess like in tradition, it's only the full moon that they come out. And she is trapped there, not supposed to be there. Literally, there's no one to be with that she can understand her, right? So sort of like I was saying before, that crowded room feeling, you don't quite belong there. No one quite understands what's going on. You certainly don't understand what's going on. Usually it means we're in transition of some sort, but knowing what transition that is difficult. You might be looking for projectile points, though, every time you see a pebble. The Selkie represents yearning, yearning for a part of ourselves that we feel like we've lost, or maybe a part that we feel we might have had but never really understood. So many of us lose our skins, and it says especially like it loses them young. So there's like the separation from says true nature and what nourishes and empowers us. And it often becomes apparent only after many years. This card encourages you to remember your lost skin, your unique sense of self, your unique creative power as a woman or man or gender nonconforming, and start to remember the pelt that once smelt so wonderfully of home and of yourself and all your natural wildness. How can you begin to grow a new skin, a skin that represents the heart of who you are now and allows you to accept and fully embody the wild woman within? And they always like capitalize their wild woman because, that is like one of the key features of looking to make sure the rooted woman oracle is that this idea of the wild woman. And sort of like embracing, that sort of non-domesticated self. So definitely like the pelt, growing your own. That's usually not in the traditions, right? Usually you have to find it after many years. And it is, of course, a way of finding it after many years. Like sometimes we have to try things on. Like I'm a big believer in trying on experiences and trying on places, and then I write about them. Okay, it's true. So like that's part of like being the writer identity, and the poet identity. But like you sort of go to a place, you have a story in mind. Sometimes it's not what you write, but you start with it, and a lot of times you wind up with the story of yourself too. Like this one time I went to an archaeology lab and I found myself there 3 years later, still doing archaeology and bossing around the archaeologists. You never know where you're going to be or who you're going to change into. I was not confident at all, scared to death. I couldn't read and write for 5 years. I mean, like, so those of you that don't know my story, I do have aphasia. The idea of going to a lab where I'm going to write down words I don't know and then talking to a former professor that is a doctorate, of course, and had words I'd never heard of. Apparently, they're English. And it was a fearful, fearful sort of time. But sort of that pilgrimage, okay? I decided I was just gonna stick it out, see what happened. I went there. I sort of bumbled along. I was invited on a dig like right away, so I was all excited. And I think anybody would have been invited on a dig, but like it just worked out that I felt like special, right? And I met a lot of cool people. And the idea that like finding your community, a lot of people have no idea why do you write? Why the hell do you dig in the dirt? It's true, right? Right. So I mean, I think we all have these like different parts of ourselves, different things that other people don't understand, right? I got an entire different vocabulary over the last 3 years. Believe me, I was schooled. I was not to use precise incorrectly. If it was accurate, it was accurate. If it was precise, it was precise. And I still get them wrong because I'm a poet and I mix them up because they're synonyms, but apparently they're different enough that they get mad. So I have a lot of doctorates, not medical, a lot of archaeologists going, Kim, that is precise, not accurate, or not accurate, but precise. And still, I could, really get that definition down. Could. But part of that community is having them tell me, you know? Isn't it interesting when you're learning? Or at least when they think you are, you can know something and then just like learn it better and have it reinforced. Same thing. Same thing as like knitting, quilting, um, doing, yard work and, putting in trees. Like there's so many things that we can do well, sort of like get deeper into it. Um, I know one friend of mine goes hunting for different flora and fauna with his eye explorer. Maybe I said that right. And he loves it. It makes him get out, makes him walk around and explore, even if he's by himself. It's always my problem. Like if I'm by myself, why am I going to explore? So this is just like some techniques, ideas, and some probably just ramblings. But I swear, I think it all matters. All right, our next one is 7, Ellen. And I am not going to get the names correct. Now, this is a path maker and guide. Okay, so it's the dream of, oh, I'm sorry. It is better for me just to spell it out for you and not butcher. Macsenwleddig. Ellen, an otherworldly princess of Britain, appears to the Roman Emperor Maxen. I'll say Maxen, but I don't think it's right. And the beautiful woman there, he instantly falls in love. So Ellen reels Maxen in along the thread of her dream path, bringing him to her so that he can marry her and serve the land alongside her as his king. Now, we haven't gotten to the second card of dreams. And we've been sort of talking about dreams, like of this pilgrimage and stuff, but like using the word dreams. The next one also does it. So I think it's interesting that Ellen is like almost like a also giver of dreams and like uses it as a tool to draw someone in again for community in some ways. She's also like, the Roman roads, only the land, it is saying, would allow it, only she like sort of speaks for the land. The story firmly states that men of Britain would have allowed the roads to be built for no one but her, because she was native to the land's representative. Ellen, like so many other female characters in Celtic myth and stories, are representative of sovereignty. Sorry, I read it every time. Sovereignty and the goddess of the land. So there is like this idea of sovereignty, finding our place, being on our own, and not necessarily always being on our own and wanting to be. Think that's where that longing is back and forth, sort of like the island with the waves on it. I think it all winds up connecting. The building of these great connecting roads is the reason why Ellen has now come to be known as Ellen of the Ways. Ellen then can be seen as an ally on our journey, a native goddess and guide who helps us to dream into our being, our own unique pathway through life. Look for her in your dreams. So, so like she sort of would be like the journey, right? So that original card, the pilgrim, right, or the pilgrimage, we're the pilgrim, and having the roads that all connect. So I think despite the windiness and whatever road we're on, we get to that destination in the center if they all connect. We get to the place we're exactly supposed to be. I, I remember saying that. So I think I said that at the beginning. So I apologize that I said it again, but it must mean that it's true, right? All right. And then 14, Old Woman of Dreams, the maker of visions. I am going to read this one because I didn't know the myth at all that surrounded it. An old Scottish folktale tells of an old woman and an old man who live in a cave up in the Cuillin, Cuillin mountains of the Isle of Skye. The couple are the creators of all the dreams of the world. See, this is the one that was talking about dreams, right? It's a great one to end on. The old woman dreams has a deep vision. She can see and understand everything that's happening in the world by looking into a dark pool in the cave. She uses this knowledge to create the substance out of which her husband crafts the dreams of the world. The two of them together, quite literally dreaming the world into being. And this doesn't mean that you have to have a romantic partner to do this, but it does help to like share dreams sometimes and take each other on side quests and have an end goal that is, if not the same, at least pairs up. You know, I mean, it does help. Like I go off with a photographer and he takes pictures and I write to the pictures or write to him or whatever. And with archaeologists, they go on adventures. Sometimes I go with them. Sometimes I just publish their stuff in a newsletter. And sometimes I help them go places, with or without me. Like somehow there is an end goal for all of us, but we don't always get there at the same time, but we all help each other. It's sort of that nature. So we're all like sort of like piggybacking on each other's dreams. So my dream is attached to somebody else's dream that's attached to somebody else's dream. So like when we talk about dream weaving, it doesn't even have to be woven just out of our dreams. We can piggyback. A lot of writing community actually does this. You build yourself up like your name, right? Bring somebody else. They go above you. They get published more than you, or they have a new book out, and then they bring you up, and like they do some publicity for you. You keep doing this, and so like you really like craft dreams. And if you're into wordsmithing or any type of artwork, I think that, there's something about it that is of the dreams, and it doesn't have to be at night. It can be anytime. There is like sort of this otherworldliness of that, like sort of like that art brain. I have to say though, I'm learning that the scientific brain does the same thing. Like if you're writing a research paper, or if you're doing the same task, but doing it for a purpose, it's that same sort of meditation that I find in writing. And so like something of that nature, if it's like more with your hands, I suggest it, it's a great way to meditate without having to sit there and like, I always find myself on pretending to meditate instead of actually letting go and thinking a problem through. All right. Now, the story tells of a young girl who loses her way and misty weather and stays with the couple for a year and a day. helping them with their work. As a consequence, the girl comes to understand the importance of apprenticeship. She emerges from the old woman's tuition with a knowledge of how to interpret dreams, a skill that she later finds valuable in her husband's country, and which she then turns and passes on to the people for the benefit of all. So, that idea of apprenticeship, of always constantly learning. He's still going. Sorry. You're like, all right, let's read it out. Yep. Merely shoveling snow didn't work for me. Yeah. Archaeology jokes. That's what you have to look forward to. The Old Woman of Dreams card reminds us that we should take time to apprentice ourselves to the knowledge of our dreams. Although many of our dreams don't make sense to us in a narrative context, nevertheless, the characters who populate them and the images which appear hold information that might be helpful to us along our path. Our dreams also reflect the wisdom of our inner self, part of us that knows what's good for us, even when the conscious mind does not. And that's a pretty good card to end on. This idea of like the deepness going within, sort of that meditation and that sort of being, this is the rooted woman oracle, and yet it's sort of like this is not supposed to be rooted, right? There is like nothing about being rooted. I've had cards and I've done readings for myself and for others, and like, oh, we're talking about our roots and holding down and staying still, and that is not what we're being asked to do. Maybe go within. You can stay still and still go within, but there's still an action there. All right. I promise the romance spark. I have not. Ooh, it's stuck. I don't want to drop them. I have not looked these in a very, very long time, so I apologize if I do not know what I'm doing. You're just supposed to read them. I thought originally you could like light them. I thought that would be somebody do it. Do it. You light it and the wish goes into being. All right. It says write each other love letters. And just so you understand, I believe that every poem, like most writing, in fact, maybe not research, but our love poems, our love stories. It's the idea the writer is loving about a subject, a topic. It doesn't have to be a person. I'll use my poetry, for example. Like it's very much like a love affair with archaeology, this like thing that never was really supposed to be, that originally was promised, and blah 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 blah. You can make it all about mystery, and you can make it all about yourself or about others, but there's still this like love. I write about atrocity, a lot about atrocity. And it's still, even though it's a horrible topic, it's showing love to those people. It's showing love for whoever I am writing for. So, like, no matter how gruesome, I've fought people on this. No matter how gruesome, every poem is a love poem, because, like, the poet is loving it. If you really want to get geeky, the narrator or the speaker, the person that's sort of like telling you the story or the poem, they have like they're telling you the story in the poem, right? So there's some type of love or fixation there. So you don't have to just write a love letter for romance. That was a really long explanation of you can write for other things. Act like tourists in your own city or town. That is a really good one, right? There's always something new. And what if there is something old that you just haven't gone to in a long time? It might be a good place to start that pilgrimage. Let's do watch the sunrise and sunset on the same day. That is really hard. I'm turning them like you can really see them. I swear to God that they're there, but you're very small. But like, oh, that's a lot of time. Like, how do we devote ourselves to ourselves for that much time? I haven't learned how to have fun yet, let alone watch the sunrise and the sunset. Maybe today. I did watch the sunrise, sort of. All right, sign up for a class together. And yes, I know this is like romance sort of thing, but I like that. We've talked about all that stuff, apprenticeship, and being present for yourself. And one more. You, you might be hearing. Turn off your phones and the TV for an evening and talk instead. So instead of feeling alone, even though you're with somebody or there's a crowd of people around you, talk to them, have them talk to you, listen, make connections. I have an email to respond to about archaeology because that's like how you do. I am personally a group project. I have a feeling we all are. So like professors and professors like far into the career, really retired is this gentleman. And then he's like, I just like teach for fun. Well, okay, good for you. And then you have like my age, right? The millennial. And they're like, they have kids, but like they have kids and they have all this stuff to do and it's a constant race and battle. You have like the whole spectrum and they add each thing to you until you are like a community. You find like sort of like your place. Sometimes you have to give a person a Sharpie. This could be a fork. This could be like insert yourself into your own life. There is a person that you are always handing something to. I don't care what age you are, whatever. There's somebody that you hand something to. Like that is like you are the bearer of. I'm like the bearer of the Sharpie. I make it look like my mentor hasn't forgotten them. And I kind of slyly, you know, give them, away. Like this was the plan the entire time. It was my plan, but so you find your place. Okay. With that, my friends, rambled on enough. Be well, take care of yourself. If you are watching this in March 2025, be good to yourself. It doesn't matter if you're in the United States or anywhere else. It's sort of like Canada's elbows up, and gotta do what we gotta do, but we have to survive sort of together. We can't live in echo chambers, and that's true at any time. But like at this particular time, and it's this particular political climate, we have to band together. Doesn't matter what your political view, we still have to come together so that we are not separate. Like we aren't our own islands. All right. Take care. Be well. Enjoy the journey.